God has chosen someone as your spouse. What an incredible truth to embrace, to know that the creator of the heavens and the earth, the one who spoke light into existence, who formed the mountains and the seas, has personally orchestrated your destiny in such a way that he has handpicked someone to walk this journey of life with you. There is something so sacred, so divinely appointed in the idea of partnership. We are not meant to walk this life alone. God in his infinite wisdom has designed us for connection. He said, it is not good for man to be alone. From the very beginning, he established the foundation for the union of man and woman, a union that is meant to be an expression of his love, a reflection of his covenant relationship with his people. Now, when we talk about God choosing someone as your spouse, we must first understand that this is not a coincidence. This is not happenstance or random chance. This is a divine appointment, a moment in time that God has planned from the very beginning. Your spouse is not just someone you happen to meet. This person has been chosen, handpicked by God, designed for you, and designed for your purpose. And the connection you share is not only physical, but spiritual, emotional, and intellectual. Sometimes we get caught up in the idea that finding a spouse is about compatibility. And while there is certainly an element of compatibility in a healthy relationship, compatibility is not the ultimate thing. What we often forget is that your spouse is not just chosen to make you comfortable, they are chosen to help you grow. Your spouse is God's tool in your life to refine you, to challenge you, and to shape you into the person he has destined you to be. Think about it. God knows you better than you know yourself. He sees the potential within you that you may not even be aware of. He knows your weaknesses and your strengths. He knows your dreams, your desires, your flaws, your fears, and he has still chosen someone who is going to be the perfect counterpart for you. And this is not just about getting someone who fits you, but rather someone who complements you in ways that push you into your purpose. There is an old saying that opposites attract. And while that might be true to some degree, it's also important to recognize that the union of a husband and wife is meant to be a fusion of two distinct, unique individuals. God has intentionally placed someone in your life who might not always agree with you, who might not always think the same way you do, but who will challenge you to grow in ways you never imagined. Your spouse is not only there to be a companion on the easy days, but to stand by your side through the valleys and the mountaintops of life. God has chosen someone for you who is going to help you see life from a different perspective. They will challenge your assumptions, confront your shortcomings, and help you discover parts of yourself that you didn't even know were there. In this union, God is doing something powerful. He is taking two individuals, each with their own gifts, strengths, weaknesses, and experiences, and blending them together into something that is greater than the sum of its parts. That's why in marriage, two become one. This is not just a symbolic statement. It is the reality of what God is doing in your life. But it's not just about the process of growth, is it? It's also about the joy of sharing life with someone, the moments of laughter, the shared experiences, the way that love deepens over time. When God chooses someone as your spouse, he is also blessing you with a companion for life, someone to share the journey, someone to walk beside you when the road gets tough, and to rejoice with you when the journey is sweet. This is not just about fulfilling a need or a desire. This is about sharing your life and all its ups and downs with a person who was divinely chosen for you. And yet it's also important to recognize that the choice of a spouse is not merely about compatibility or growth. God's choice for your spouse is directly tied to your destiny. You see, God does not just give us spouses to complete us or make our lives more comfortable. No, he gives us spouses to help us fulfill the destiny he has called us to. Your spouse is not just a person to grow old with. They are a partner in your divine purpose. The Word of God tells us that two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. Marriage is not just about mutual companionship, but about mutual purpose. When God joins you with someone, He is also joining you to a shared calling, a shared mission, a shared purpose. Your spouse will help you step into the purpose that God has for your life in ways that no one else can. They will encourage you, push you, and at times even challenge you to move toward the things that God has planned for you. They will be there with you, hand in hand, to take the steps necessary to fulfill the calling that God has placed on your life. But with this divine union also comes divine responsibility. You are not just called to have a happy marriage, you are called to build a life together that honors God and fulfills His purpose for you both. God has chosen your spouse not just to bless you, but to help you build His kingdom. The choices you make together, the way you love, the way you serve, the way you treat each other, all of it is part of the divine purpose God has for you. It is not just about finding someone who will make you happy. It's about finding someone who will walk with you in fulfilling the greater call that God has on your life. This is why it's so important to understand that your marriage is not just for you. God's purpose for you and your spouse extends far beyond the walls of your home, far beyond your personal comfort. Your marriage is a reflection of the relationship between Christ and His church. It is a testimony of God's love, grace, and mercy. When the world looks at your marriage, they should see something different. They should see a love that is sacrificial, a partnership that is strong and unbreakable, a union that reflects the very character of God Himself. And here's the truth. God has chosen your spouse not only for your own benefit, but also for the benefit of those around you. The way you and your spouse live, the way you work together, the way you love one another has a far-reaching impact on the world around you. Your marriage becomes a powerful witness to the world of God's love, of His faithfulness, and of His ability to take two individuals with their own stories and weave them together into something beautiful and meaningful. There will be times when things are not easy. There will be days when you feel misunderstood, when the communication is off, when the challenges of life feel overwhelming. But even in those moments, you can rest assured that God has chosen your spouse for you. There is a divine purpose in your relationship, and it is bigger than the temporary struggles that may come your way. Trust that God is working in and through both of you to fulfill a purpose that is far greater than what you can see in the moment. So, what do you do with this truth? How do you respond to the fact that God has chosen someone as your spouse? First, you need to embrace this divine reality. Don't take your spouse for granted. Recognize that they are a gift from God, chosen by Him to walk beside you in this life. Value them, honor them, and treat them with the love and respect they deserve. Understand that God has brought you together for a purpose, and that purpose is bigger than just your happiness. Second, you need to commit to growing together. Marriage is not just about the good times. It's about growing together through every season. Lean into each other, support each other's dreams, encourage each other when things get tough, challenge each other to become the best versions of yourselves. This journey is about growth, and it is about fulfilling the purpose God has for you both. And finally, you need to trust in God's plan. Trust that He knows what He's doing. Trust that He has chosen your spouse for a reason, and that He will use your marriage to fulfill His greater purposes. Even when things don't make sense, trust that God is in control and that His plan is always better than your own. Remember, God has chosen someone as your spouse for a purpose, and that purpose is far greater than you can imagine. Embrace it, trust it, and let God lead you into the destiny He has prepared for you both. Your spouse is not a random choice, but a divine appointment carefully orchestrated by God to fulfill His greater purpose for your life. This partnership is a reflection of God's intentional design and a means of growing together to fulfill your shared destiny. Marriage is not just about compatibility, but about growth. God has chosen a spouse to help refine, challenge, and shape you into the person He has destined you to be. Your spouse complements your strengths and weaknesses, pushing you toward spiritual, emotional, and personal development. Your union is about more than just personal happiness. It is part of God's greater plan. Together, you and your spouse are called to serve God's purpose, build His kingdom, and reflect His love to the world. Your marriage is a living testimony of His faithfulness, grace, and design. When we think about the concept of marriage, we often view it through the lens of human interaction, companionship, and love. We picture the joining of two lives, the blending of two stories, and the creation of a family or a partnership. But what if we viewed marriage through a different perspective? What if we realized that our spouse is not just someone we've chosen, someone we met by chance, or someone who just fits into our lives? What if we truly understood that our spouse is a divinely orchestrated partner, handpicked by God, designed specifically for us to fulfill a higher purpose? The idea of a divinely orchestrated partnership begins with the understanding that God is not just involved in the spiritual or the supernatural aspects of our lives, but in every detail of our existence, including the choice of our spouse. Many people approach marriage as if it's simply about finding someone compatible, someone who shares the same interests, or someone who makes them happy. But the truth is far deeper and more profound. The person you marry has been chosen by God, and that union has a divine purpose that goes far beyond the simple pleasures of companionship. God is the creator of the universe, the one who knit us together in our mother's womb, who knows the number of hairs on our heads and the deepest desires of our hearts. If God is involved in every other aspect of our lives, from our career choices to our health to the relationships we build, why would we think He isn't deeply involved in the most important partnership of all, our marriage? This partnership is not a random event. It is a divinely orchestrated moment that speaks to the heart of God's will for our lives. God's plan for marriage can be seen in the way He designed human relationships from the very beginning. In the book of Genesis, we read that God saw that it was not good for man to be alone. From the very start, God knew that companionship and partnership were essential to fulfilling the purpose He had for humanity. He could have created Adam and left him to his own devices, but instead He created Eve, perfectly suited to walk alongside Adam. It wasn't merely about companionship. It was about creating a partnership that would support the fulfillment of God's divine will for the earth. The partnership between Adam and Eve was not a happenstance, but part of God's plan to build His kingdom. Now think about this for a moment. God in His wisdom has chosen someone for you who is uniquely suited to help you fulfill your purpose on earth. This person was not just a person you randomly met or fell into a relationship with. They are part of God's eternal plan for your life. They have been specifically chosen to walk with you, to help you become who God has called you to be, and to join you in fulfilling the destiny He has laid out for both of you. This divinely orchestrated partnership is not just about finding someone who makes you feel good or someone with whom you share mutual interests. It's about recognizing that this person has been placed in your life to help you fulfill the unique calling God has placed on your life. Think about the deeper meaning behind this. God has chosen someone who is specifically designed to support your purpose, to challenge you, to refine you, and to walk with you through every season of life. The choice of a spouse is not about you being comfortable. It's about you growing, stepping into your full potential, and fulfilling your destiny. Marriage then becomes an avenue for you and your spouse to grow together. It's not simply about living in harmony or finding someone who suits your personal desires, but rather about coming together as two people with different strengths, gifts, and perspectives, and merging those differences to accomplish God's will on earth. God uses your spouse as a tool to help shape you, to help mold you into the person He has destined you to be. There will be moments when your spouse challenges you in ways you didn't expect, when they push you out of your comfort zone, or when their strengths highlight your weaknesses. But this is all part of the divine plan. Your spouse is not just there to make you feel good or provide companionship during the good times. They are there to help you grow, to refine your character, to stretch your faith, and to guide you toward your destiny. This is the essence of a divinely orchestrated partnership. The union you share with your spouse is not just about you. It is about both of you coming together to reflect God's image and work in the world. In the same way that God has a plan for your life, He has a plan for your marriage, and your spouse is the one chosen to walk beside you in fulfilling that plan. The Bible says that two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. This principle speaks to the power of partnership in marriage. When two people come together, working towards a common goal, they accomplish far more than they would separately. The partnership between you and your spouse is not merely a practical arrangement, but a spiritual one. You and your spouse are not only working together in the natural realm, but you are also co-laboring in the kingdom of God. Your marriage is a reflection of God's love, His grace, and His covenant with His people. The union of husband and wife is a living example of how God desires to relate with His people, with love, commitment, faithfulness, and mutual respect. And in this divinely orchestrated partnership, there is a mutual purpose. It's not just about one person's dreams or desires being fulfilled. It's about both of you coming together to pursue God's will. This means that your marriage is not only about mutual support, but also about mutual mission. As a couple, you are called to serve God's purpose, to reflect His love, and to build His kingdom together. Your marriage is an instrument of God's glory, a testimony of His faithfulness, and a witness to the world of His power to unite people in love and purpose. Sometimes we may feel that we're in a marriage that is difficult or challenging. But it's important to remember that these challenges are not signs of failure. They are opportunities for growth, refinement, and transformation. God uses the difficulties in marriage to strengthen the partnership, to build resilience, and to deepen the bond between husband and wife. Your spouse is the one person who will walk with you through the most difficult seasons of life, who will stand by your side when the world falls apart. They are there not just to share in the blessings, but to share in the burdens, to carry the weight of the journey with you. When we understand that our marriage is a divinely orchestrated partnership, it shifts our perspective. It helps us to view our spouse not just as a companion, but as a partner in the truest sense of the word. We begin to recognize that every challenge, every joy, every moment spent together is part of God's design for us. Our marriage becomes more than just a relationship. It becomes a mission, a calling, and a divine partnership that reflects the heart of God. In this light, marriage is not just about us as individuals. It is about fulfilling God's plan for our lives and the world around us. We are called to be a light to others, and our marriages can be a powerful testimony of God's love, grace, and faithfulness. When others see us working together as a couple, when they see the love, respect, and commitment we share, they witness the love of God in action. They see that there is something greater at work in our lives, something that goes beyond our own desires and ambitions. In conclusion, understanding that your spouse is a divinely orchestrated partner changes the way you approach your marriage. It shifts your focus from temporary pleasures and personal comfort to a greater purpose. Your marriage is not just about you, it is about God's plan for your life and His kingdom. Your spouse has been chosen by God to walk beside you, to challenge you, to support you, and to help you fulfill your divine destiny. Together you are stronger, more capable, and more empowered to carry out the mission God has called you to. Embrace the divine purpose in your marriage, knowing that God has brought you together for something far greater than what you can see with your natural eyes. In every marriage, there are moments when both partners are faced with challenges that seem insurmountable. These challenges can test the strength of the relationship, sometimes pushing each individual to their limits. However, in the grand design of marriage, these difficulties are not mere obstacles. They are opportunities for growth. The challenges within a marriage are often the very experiences that help each partner develop deeper strength, resilience, and character. These trials are also the means by which each person in the marriage can become the best version of themselves, refining their attributes and strengthening their faith. Growth through challenge and complement is at the heart of a healthy marriage. And it is in this very process that God's divine plan unfolds. God's design for marriage is never one of complacency or ease. It is a union that is meant to stretch us, to push us beyond our comfort zones, and to refine us into the people we were always meant to become. In a divinely orchestrated partnership, the challenges faced together are not accidental, nor are they punitive. They are the very moments that shape the marriage, fostering a deeper understanding, love, and respect between spouses. When you are married to someone, you are not only sharing your joys, but you are also sharing your difficulties. It is through those difficulties that the deepest levels of growth can occur. Marriage is not just about companionship. It is about mutual transformation. Two people come together with their own individual experiences, perspectives, backgrounds, and even baggage. Each person is shaped by their own history, and sometimes those histories collide. At first, those differences may seem to cause friction, misunderstandings, and conflict, but it is precisely through working through these differences that both individuals are refined and molded into a more complete version of themselves. Rather than simply coexisting, marriage is a shared experience in which each partner's flaws are brought into the light, and they have the opportunity to grow, develop, and evolve. The challenges in marriage are not meant to break you, but to refine and purify you. It is easy to assume that disagreements or struggles in a marriage are signs of failure, or that they reflect a lack of compatibility. However, those challenges are the very means by which you and your spouse grow. It is in the moments of difficulty that you learn how to communicate, how to understand each other's perspectives, and how to navigate the complexities of life together. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to deepen the bond, to learn new skills, and to grow together spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. One of the most beautiful aspects of marriage is that two individuals who may be very different in some respects come together to complement each other. God's plan for marriage includes not just the union of two hearts, but also the integration of two very distinct lives. Each person brings different strengths, weaknesses, and experiences to the marriage. And while these differences may initially appear as points of conflict, they are in fact opportunities for each spouse to complement and support the other. A husband and wife are not meant to be carbon copies of each other. Instead, they are meant to bring their unique attributes, perspectives, and talents into the relationship to create something that is greater than the sum of its parts. The challenge in any marriage is not to make both partners the same, but to honor and embrace the differences. It is in the space between differences that growth happens. For example, one spouse may be a natural leader while the other is more of a listener. One may be more spontaneous while the other is more structured. While these differences can sometimes lead to tension, they can also lead to balance. When embraced, they create a dynamic where both spouses complement each other. The spouse who is more spontaneous can help the more structured partner see the value of living in the moment, while the more structured spouse can help the spontaneous partner stay grounded and focused. Together, they create a harmony that reflects the beauty of God's design. Complementing each other does not mean one partner is superior to the other or that one should dominate the other. Instead, it is about finding ways to come together in a way that supports both individuals and the marriage as a whole. The way you complement each other may vary, but the end goal is the same: to create a partnership that enhances both individuals, making each person better, stronger, and more aligned with God's purpose for their lives. Through this process of mutual challenge and complement, growth is inevitable. Both partners are forced to confront their flaws, let go of selfish tendencies, and learn to serve and support each other in ways that they may not have thought possible before. Marriage, in its truest form, is not about achieving personal satisfaction at the expense of the other. It is about achieving mutual satisfaction through sacrificial love, service, and support. This kind of love challenges you to rise above your selfish desires, and in doing so, you both grow closer to each other and to God. It is also important to remember that marriage is not just about the challenges and how you complement each other in moments of difficulty. Growth also happens in the joyful moments, in the shared laughter, and in the times when things are going smoothly. It is in these moments that the deep love and appreciation for one another are nurtured. The challenges of marriage provide opportunities to learn, but the complementary aspects of marriage allow each partner to celebrate their individuality while still being part of a unified whole. When you are challenged in marriage, it is not simply about overcoming an obstacle. It is about becoming more like Christ through the process. Marriage offers an arena in which we can learn the depth of true love, the love that is patient, kind, not easily angered, and that bears all things. God's love is sacrificial, and marriage challenges us to grow into that sacrificial love each day. As we navigate the challenges of marriage, we are constantly reminded of how much we need God's grace, strength, and wisdom. It is in this process of relying on God and on each other that we grow into the image of Christ. One of the key elements of growth in marriage is communication. When challenges arise, it is easy for partners to retreat into their own corners, to become defensive, or to shut down emotionally. However, the true growth that comes from marriage happens when both spouses choose to engage with one another openly, honestly, and with a willingness to listen. When we face challenges in marriage, it's an opportunity for growth, not just in how we deal with the external issues, but in how we handle ourselves within the relationship. God can use the process of working through challenges to refine our hearts, making us more patient, more understanding, and more forgiving. In marriage, both partners are challenged to communicate openly, to express their needs, and to listen with empathy and compassion. Complementing each other means being able to step into each other's shoes, to see things from the other person's perspective. The challenge is to understand that each partner brings something different to the table, and that those differences are a blessing, not a burden. The way your spouse compliments you is not only in the areas where they are strong, but also in the areas where they are weak. In those moments of weakness, you have the opportunity to step in and support them, to offer grace and understanding, and to love them unconditionally. And in doing so, you both grow into stronger individuals and a stronger marriage. The beauty of growth through challenge and compliment is that it brings each person closer to the purpose God has for their life. Marriage is not about perfecting the other person or changing them to fit into a preconceived mold. It is about walking together in a journey of mutual growth. When you embrace the differences and challenges in your relationship, you are not only growing as individuals, but as a couple, united in purpose and in love. It is through these moments that your marriage becomes a living testament to God's transformative power. As you move forward in your marriage, embracing the challenges that arise and learning to complement each other, remember that growth is a continuous process. There will always be new challenges, new seasons of life, and new opportunities for growth. But through it all, God is with you, guiding you both toward a deeper understanding of His love and a fuller expression of His purpose for your marriage. Each challenge is an opportunity to grow. Each difference is a chance to complement, and together you will become stronger, wiser, and more aligned with God's vision for your union. Marriage is often viewed as the joining of two people, two lives, and two journeys. It is celebrated as a union built on love, companionship, and mutual respect. While these aspects are foundational, there is a much deeper purpose that lies beyond the individual relationship. Marriage is not just about the two people involved, it is about something greater than both of them. The relationship between husband and wife is a divine institution, part of God's larger plan to build his kingdom on earth. It serves a higher calling, one that extends beyond personal happiness or mutual satisfaction and reaches into the realm of fulfilling God's purpose in the world. When we understand that the purpose of marriage extends beyond the relationship itself, we begin to see it as a powerful instrument that can shape lives, influence communities, and even impact future generations. God has designed marriage not merely for the happiness and fulfillment of two individuals, but as a vessel through which his greater plans for humanity can unfold. When we view marriage in this light, we realize that it is not only a personal journey, it is a partnership that participates in the unfolding of God's divine narrative on the earth. The foundation of marriage, according to God's word, is rooted in his divine design for humanity. From the very beginning of creation, God established marriage as a covenant, a relationship meant to reflect his image, his love, and his covenant with his people. In the book of Genesis, we see that God created man and woman in his own image, and he brought them together to become one flesh. This unity was not just for companionship, but for a greater purpose, to be stewards of the earth, to multiply and fill the earth, and to carry out his divine will on the planet. Marriage, in this context, becomes an essential part of God's grand design. It is not just a personal contract between two individuals. It is a covenant that reflects God's love for humanity and his desire to see his will accomplished through his people. The union of a husband and wife, therefore, is a living example of God's relationship with his church. Just as Christ is the head of the church and loves it sacrificially, so too should a husband love his wife, nurturing, protecting, and leading her in a way that reflects God's love and purpose. The wife, in turn, supports and complements her husband, helping him fulfill the call of God on his life. Together, they are a living testimony to God's relationship with his people, a relationship built on love, trust, and a shared mission to accomplish God's will. When we embrace the understanding that marriage has a purpose beyond the relationship, we begin to see that it is part of God's plan to bring about transformation. Every marriage has a unique calling, one that is divinely ordained to reflect God's glory in different ways. For some couples, this may mean raising children who will go on to impact the world for Christ. For others, it may involve working together to build a ministry that serves the needs of the community or the church. It may involve providing a safe and loving home that fosters spiritual growth, emotional healing, and physical well-being. Whatever the specific calling, the greater purpose is to use the marriage as a tool to glorify God and to carry out his plan for the world. Marriage is not just about what happens within the home, it is about what happens outside of it as well. The marriage relationship is meant to be a reflection of God's love to the world. In a world that is often broken, fragmented, and filled with chaos, a strong marriage is a beacon of hope and a testimony of God's faithfulness. When people look at a godly marriage, they should see something that reflects the love of Christ. A marriage that is centered on Christ and committed to his purposes is a light in a dark world. It speaks volumes about what is possible when two people come together in love, commitment, and obedience to God's calling. In this way, marriage is not just about the two people involved, but it is about the impact they can have on the world around them. One of the primary purposes of marriage is to build a foundation for raising children. God's command to be fruitful and multiply still holds relevance today. Children are not only a blessing to the parents, but are also a legacy that will carry on the values, faith, and principles passed down from one generation to the next. When a couple views their marriage as a tool for raising godly children, they understand that their role as parents is part of a much larger mission. They are not just raising children for their own satisfaction, but to send them out into the world to fulfill their unique purposes and callings. In this sense, marriage becomes an instrument for generational impact. Beyond children, marriage also serves a greater purpose when it comes to building communities. The strength of a marriage affects not only the couple, but the people they influence. A healthy, Christ-centered marriage becomes a model for others to follow. It can be a source of support, encouragement, and mentorship for younger couples or those struggling with their own relationships. Couples who work together to serve in the community, whether it's through ministry, outreach, or simple acts of kindness, create a ripple effect that spreads the love of God far and wide. A marriage that serves God's purposes is one that has the ability to transform not just the couple's life, but the lives of those around them. This is where the power of marriage to change the world truly lies. It is not in the personal accomplishments or successes of the couple, but in their willingness to allow their relationship to be used by God for his greater purposes. When a couple recognizes that their marriage is part of something bigger than themselves, they begin to approach their relationship with a sense of responsibility and purpose. They begin to ask, how can we use our marriage to impact the world for Christ? How can we serve God together in ways that go beyond our own needs and desires? This mindset shifts the focus of marriage from being self-centered to being God-centered. As a couple begins to embrace this purpose, they are empowered to face the challenges of life with a renewed sense of commitment and determination. When difficulties arise in their relationship, they do not see them as obstacles to their happiness, but as opportunities to grow and strengthen their partnership. They understand that their marriage is not simply about personal fulfillment, but about fulfilling God's mission. This shift in perspective allows them to view challenges through a lens of faith and trust in God's plan. Furthermore, when marriage is viewed as a part of God's greater purpose, it invites the couple into a deeper relationship with Him. As they seek to honor God in their marriage, they will experience His presence in a more profound way. This is not just about personal spiritual growth, but about aligning their hearts and minds with God's will for their marriage and their lives. The more they commit to fulfilling God's purpose for their relationship, the more they will experience His guidance, peace, and provision. In the end, marriage is not just a union of two people. It is a covenant with God that has eternal implications. It goes beyond the relationship itself and reaches into the world, influencing future generations, communities, and the kingdom of God. When a couple embraces this divine purpose, they move beyond the limitations of self-interest and begin to live in a way that reflects God's glory and fulfills His purposes. They recognize that their marriage is not just for them, but for the kingdom of God. It is a partnership designed to impact the world, to raise up the next generation, and to shine the light of Christ to a world in need. This understanding of marriage as having a purpose beyond the relationship itself brings a sense of fulfillment, peace, and direction that cannot be found in the pursuit of personal happiness alone.